Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. Got this gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous handcrafted pipe with my book logo on it, The Golden Waffle Principle, Finding Meaning in Teaching, all thanks to Caleb over at the Catholic Pipe Company. The gorgeous green, boy, you can really see that gorgeous look there, the stem, beautiful white marble acrylic. This is the pipe that's coming out today. It fits, and also because I don't have anything better. And I'll explain what that means in just a moment. As for now, as always, let's get this guy lit. Let's get to talking. I say I don't have anything better. There's no knock on this pipe. You know that I love this pipe so much. It just smokes so well. Huge bowl. I want to smoke. In fact, I texted Caleb about it. I want to smoke this guy for over an hour and a half, close to an hour and 40 minutes, with some RLP 6 in it, as I recall. Right now, I've got my Prince Albert in there. I say I don't have anything better, and what I mean by that is if I had a pipe that particularly connected with my wife, I would use that pipe for this episode. I don't, but she certainly has some thoughts on this book, and so I thought, hey, close enough, right? This will be the one to smoke for this episode. A while back, I was meeting with a friend, and it was one of these absolute nerd fests. We got together. He wanted to talk about the pronunciation of classical Latin, which is different from the ecclesiastical Latin that you'll hear maybe say in a Latin mass or in various pieces of church music and so forth. Different pronunciation. So we started off to talk about that. The waitress came up to us. We met at a restaurant. And she said, can I get you guys anything else? And I said, could you bring us some napkins? I said, we're going to need to do some writing. She said, I can do you better than that. She said, I'll bring you a checkbook or where they write your order. And so she brought us a blank or a book of menu receipts, whatever you call that. Filled up one, ripped it off, filled up another, ripped it off. We must have filled up half a dozen to a dozen of those sheets of paper. Sharing notes, passing stuff back and forth. We started off talking about the pronunciation of Latin. Went on to many other things in theology, in philosophy, in history. We did actually get around to talking about pipes. And I introduced my friend to the pipe channel. We got done, or toward the end of our time together. And my friend said something, and I said, I'm going to use this in an upcoming episode. I love this phrase. He said he enjoyed getting together with me. He just said, because I'm the kind of person who would say yes and in a conversation rather than yes, dear. Now, what are we talking about? What does that mean? Yes and versus yes, dear. Well, I think you can figure out what yes, dear means. We've all been there. Husbands have said this to wives. Wives have said it to husbands. Boyfriends and girlfriends, back and forth. The one person says something to the other that the first person finds very important. Very interesting, very important, they're passionate about it, and quite frankly, the other person simply is not. So to be polite, the second person says, "Yes, dear. That's nice, dear." By way of saying, I acknowledge what you said. I get that it's important to you. I need you to understand that it's not that important to me, and this conversation probably isn't going to go any further along that path. Now, you can't expect husbands and wives to have the exact same interests. You can't expect boyfriends and girlfriends to have the exact same interests. You know. But isn't it nice when you have someone who will say, yes, and I knew instantly what my friend meant when he said that. You're in a conversation, and the other person is tracking with what you said so well. The other person is so interested and so passionate, just as much as you are, that when you say something, the other person says, yes, as in, I get that, I understand that, and then the person wants to continue and go deeper or go in a slightly different angle, but spinning off of, riffing off of the original topic. And then the first person can come back to that person and say, oh, yes, and, oh my goodness, hour and a half, 2 hours goes by. Let me interrupt the video right now and say, I hope you have somebody like that in your life. I hope you have multiple people like that in your life. And depending on the things that you're interested in, it may be several different people, right? So I got people that I can talk pipe stuff with. My wife is not one of those people. But I got other stuff that I'll talk about with my wife. And I can't talk about that with other people. And no, I'm not talking about particularly intimate romantic things. Not talking, going down that road. But my wife is a teacher. She's been a school administrator. I talked about her before. She started a private school, was headmaster of it. She's currently the what we call head of program at a hybrid Christian school, half homeschool, half on-campus school. She's the head of that and teaches Latin. She's got her master's degree in education administration. Her bachelor's degree is in education as well, with a concentration in classics, which is my field. And I can't tell you the number of times that I can get to send my wife an article through an email or a text, or she sends me an article through email or text having to do with classics, Latin, Greek, history, archaeology, literature, you name it. And quite frankly, some of the things that really do mean the most to me. She, in the areas that mean the most to me, she does not say, yes, dear. She's a yes and kind of person. Now, I brought this pipe out, and I got to tell you, man, I just can't stop. I can't stop looking at this thing. Every video I do, and certainly when I smoke it just by myself, half the time I'm pulling it away from my face just to look at it. So much love the work that Caleb did. So definitely check him out over there at Catholic Pipe Company.com. And the reason I brought this out is because my wife definitely had something to say about this book. This book just wasn't a vanity project for me. Where she goes, okay, yes, dear, you're doing your book thing. Fine, whatever. As we got near towards the actual publication of the book, I was asking her all kinds of questions. I was asking her questions about, hey, should we go with plain white or should we go with off-white cream paper? When it came back from the designer, several different versions of single space or 1.5 spacing or double spacing and all that kind of stuff, I was asking her what she thought. She was very familiar with the content already. In fact, when we started dating, we were undergraduates at Indiana University, and I remember calling her in the evenings. This is way before cell phones. And I go down to the payphone in the basement of my dorm, or the basement of the library, and I call her. And we loved talking about education. And talk about a yes and sort of conversation. We talked endlessly. I mean it. I remembered it. We talked for hours. And there were times when I was home on vacation. And I would call Melissa. And we just talked for hours about education. She's very much a yes and kind of person. When I wrote the second edition of Latin for Dummies with my friend Clifford Hall, he and I co-wrote the first version of Latin for Dummies back in around 2000 or 2001, I guess it was. Then in 2021, the company wanted to come out with the second edition for the 20th anniversary. Clifford and I got together to do it again, and they wanted a technical editor. And Clifford, the other co-author, who knew my wife, knew me, obviously. He knew us when we were undergraduates. He was a graduate student in classics at Indiana University. And he suggested, not I, Clifford suggested that Melissa be the technical editor on the second edition of Latin for Dummies, which she was. So she's a person I can talk like that with. I have wonderful, wonderful colleagues. Too many to name. And this has really been true at every school that where I've been teaching. Certainly the school where I am now, it is absolutely true. People that I can talk Latin and again, theology, history, poetry. Many of the topics on this channel. I have other guys that I talk music with, and they'll be the kind of person, yes, and like, did you hear about this album, and do you know about this, and that sort of thing. So I loved my friend's phrasing, to have somebody who would say yes and rather than yes dear. So talk to us about that. Do you have somebody like that? Do you have somebodies like that in your life? A person or people who will take the conversation further with you. Not trying to talk over the top of you. We're not talking one-upsmanship, right? We're not trying to get in words over the top of you. But they're so excited about the conversation. They're as excited as you are about the topic, and they want to keep it going because they're bringing fresh fuel to the fire. Ooh, hey, we're burning some leaves here, so there's a good metaphor for you. They bring fresh fuel to the fire. Who are those people for you? What are some of the topics that you can talk about? Yes, and yes, and yes, and. Would love to hear from you about that. Folks, as Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ago ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.